My name is Nduka Otiono, and I'm from Nigeria, originally, as they like to say, but I'm Nigerian Canadian, and I teach at Carleton University. I'm a professor in the South African Studies at Carleton University. I had an early career as a journalist before going to grad school and transitioning into an academic career after going to University of Alberta. So I had my first and second degrees at University of Ibadan in Nigeria, and then worked for so many years as a journalist before going to study English and Film Studies at University of Alberta in Edmonton, Canada. And afterwards, I went to Brown University for a postdoc to work with the great Otiono Family, and was fortunate to return to Canada through a Banting postdoctoral fellowship. And since returning to Canada, I got converted to a tenure track professor at the Institute of African Studies, where I have been teaching for the past few years. So I straddle my various interests as a creative writer, as a scholar, and as a professor. I think that's a very tricky one. I wish I could say perfectly, I do that perfectly. But I think my various selves, as I would like to describe it, is manifested in in these three interests, especially with the creative writing and the creative force. So at all times I try to balance what appears to be a battle of the selves. So I have these different selves in competition, and sometimes I am not so sure I have managed to strike that balance. However, I am excited by the fact that I have the opportunity, when I am bored with one of these selves, to switch to the other self. And so I have in myself a tripartite, or what you might call a certain kind of creative trinity. That's the way I say it. So I have my creative aspect, and then I have my scholarly aspect, and then I also have my teaching aspect. I love teaching, and I believe and I hope that my students will support the idea that I love teaching. Teaching for me is a very exciting experience that allows a certain kind of interaction that is privileged, because you have the opportunity that you otherwise wouldn't have to interact with students from different backgrounds, and especially in a university that's international as Carleton. And then on the other hand, my personal self, which allows me moments of solitude and allows me to enter into my mind to dredge some of those creative demons, as I like to say, which deals with me and I deal with them in turn. Also enables me to create poetry and fiction. I haven't written much fiction lately, but I continue to write poetry. And I'm actually excited, especially after working on this latest book, with experimenting with transforming my poetry from print to audio. As you know already, I've been working on having this production of my two poetry collections into audiobooks, poetry CDs, and it's been very exciting. When I look at the cover of this book and I see this guy with his face looking so expressionless, I begin to understand how he invites me. And I think all of those people who have been Dylan fans, or what they call Dylanists, to continue to explore his world. I think that Bob Dylan is easily one of the greatest artists that ever lived of all time. And there are various ways in which I can try to prove this. Whereas I know that I'm not under any inquisition or any inquiry, especially in the context of what's going on south of the border. I'm sure you know what I'm referring to. There's no inquiry going on at this moment in regards to the stature of Bob Dylan. But Bob Dylan's creative ability, and more importantly, his special gift. Of all the guys of his generation, he's the only one who is alive. Like my mentor, Chinua Achebe. These are artists who are so fortunate to have been celebrities for over 50 years. That's a lifetime. And so if you think about how long Bob Dylan, the name, the man, and the work has been in circulation, you begin to understand that just for the sheer fact of that longevity, you got to respect him. But beyond that, the quality of his work is so striking. He straddles various aspects of, artistic excellence. From the writing itself, he has produced some great poems that pass as lyrics for songs. He has been one of the greatest songwriters of all time. And at the same time, he has also managed to continue to reinvent himself, going through a broad spectrum of artistic genres or music genres, from folk to hip hop. You will be surprised, down to jazz, to blues, and so on and so forth. The whole spectrum has been extended and explored by Bob Dylan. And more so against the backdrop that it was only in November 2018, that I had the opportunity of seeing Bob Dylan play live for the very first time in Rochester, New York. And there he was, in his 70s, with all sometimes the arrogance of an artist who understands his stature and his achievement, going ahead and just coming into the stage without any introductions and just zapping away and belting his songs, and then finishing without any protocols and just leaving the stage. I was like, only Bob Dylan could do that, but more importantly, the part that troubles me, and I wish this could be a lifetime aspiration that can be achieved, is that despite his never-ending tour, Bob Dylan has not played in Africa. This has been a sore point for me. And so the question can be asked, how did a group of Nigerian poets become so enamored of this artist who hasn't even bothered whether they exist or not by playing? He is always on his world tour. It's called a never-ending tour and hasn't played in the continent. I think, to use the Bob Dylan line, the answer, my friend, is blowing in the wind.
Yes, and how many times must the cannonballs fly before they're forever banned? The answer, my friend, is blowing in the wind. The answer is blowing in